Saab are an example of how car manufacturing can go wrong. And I don't think it's any fault of their own, and any of their innovation that they try to instill into the car market isn't the reason that they fall, or isn't the prime reason as to why they fell. And it's sad to see, really, because they tried to instill quality over anything else, whether it was at the cost of the budget, whether it was at the cost of potentially how the car would be sold and how the car would be received. They did it. It was clear from the get-go when Saab first started making cars that they wanted to do something different. And they want it to be different to every other car manufacturer that was just in it for a buck. But the problem is, to survive, you have to make a profit. Because where does that money go for future models and that kind of thing? It has to at least break even just to survive. And Saab are an example, more than any other, of that rule. But it is disappointing to see, because you could see that they wanted to have its own stamp on cars and the creation of cars. Because you go back to something like the Sonnet that they tried to make as a sports car, that they were trying to do something unique. And as interesting as it looks, it was just a shocking car. But look at it, nobody else was doing something like that. And then even when the 99 Turbo, which is Saab's by a mile most famous car, it's still so interesting. It's such a quirky, unique car. Now, I'm not such a big fan of the looks of it, because to me it just looks a bit like a duck. But the intention for it, sticking a turbo, or the first of most civilian cars to have a turbo in it, it's unique. They made a stamp on that turbo craze that was around in the 80s. And I just wish more innovative ideas were sprung up by other car companies. But they don't, because Saab fell through, and that's the unfortunate side to it, is when they try to instill quality and their own unique stamp on things, it's a risk, and theirs didn't pay off. Because going forward, when they were struggling for cash, and they shared the 9000 with Lancia and had all of that cost to make it more safe, and should I say, an actually safe car. And then when they were bought by General Motors, again, they didn't settle, but they couldn't afford to not settle, and that's the problem. It unfortunately failed because they tried to create such a quality product for a market that wasn't there, for a demand that wasn't there. The type of person that were to buy a Saab wouldn't be replacing it as fast as the new models came out. They would run it and keep it running until it literally died on its feet. Because the type of person that were to buy a Saab isn't like an M3 owner or a hot hatch owner or anything like that. It would be someone that wanted quality, wanted to make sure that it was safe while driving a car, and then have added extras on top of that. They wouldn't care that it was a Saab. In fact, they actually took pride that it was a Saab and it was unique to anything else. And that type of market is far and few between. But they quite clearly had care for the cars that they created, or at least care for the process of innovating a new car and producing it. And they had care for the drivers of them, because otherwise they wouldn't make them as safe as they were. Even something like their last car, the 9.5, it's still, as much as it's a Vauxhall insignia underneath, Saab changed it to make it their car. And you can see that, and there is some sort of quirkiness to it. There is an element of Saab that is still impressive and still unique, and it's sad to see them go. I've got a relative that's still got a Saab, and it is still running, and it is getting on for 20 years old, and there is no problem with it, and he loves it. The only problem he has is when he has to replace small parts, they're hard to source. But why should I be the one to tell you about Saab? I drive a bloody white Fiesta, so yeah.